Hello, everyone. Welcome to Checking In with Changemakers with Be the Change Media Network. My name is Lily Mott, and this is a show where I get to catch up with past guests of Be the Change podcast. I have been hosting this podcast for over 3.5 years now, and my guests have done some amazing work since I talked with them. So this is an update on the work that they're doing. My guest today is Joshua Gabriel Oluwaseyi, and he is a climate storyteller and an environmental activist. I interviewed Joshua for Be the Change podcast back in March of 2022, and he was featured in episode 92 of the podcast, which is absolutely crazy. Let me make sure that, there we go. Okay. I think that Joshua should be joining us. Let's see. Okay. Perfect. All right, we're good. Hello, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? Can you hear me?
I'm great.
Perfect.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I got the intro out of the way, so I feel like we can kind of dive in. But I was just saying, I interviewed you all the way back in March of 2022,
Mm.
which is crazy. And that was episode 92 of Be the Change podcast. So I know that you've done lots of great work since then. I've been stalking your Instagram a little bit, so I know, but I can't wait to hear more about it. So how are you today? How is everything going?
Uh, where do I even start? I mean, there's so much going on. Firstly, excited to talk to you again, Lily. 2022. That's wow. 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 That's a
I
while ago.
know.
Like it's been 2 years almost.
I
Um,
know.
wow. But I'm good. I am in final year of college now. Final year,
Uh-huh.
final semester of college. So I've got like 8 weeks left in university in
Oh
total,
my
and that's
gosh.
exciting, but also really scary because I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna do
Yeah.
after university? You know, that pressure of like, life's about to happen or begin. So just like the last couple of weeks and this week too has just been filled with that sense of pressure.
Uh-huh.
But I think interesting story though.
Yeah.
Last week, we had an environmental issue. The FEPA of my country, the Environmental Protection Agency, had announced earlier in the year that we have this weather thing called Hamilton,
Hmm.
which is essentially like the I think the breeze from the Sahara sort of blows towards the south of Africa, and
Hmm.
it creates a very zone was delayed, not by like people, but climate change, of
Uh-huh.
course. And they announced that not only delayed, but the Hamilton was going to be a lot harsher, and that the air was going to be filled with like particles that could cause inflammatory problems, dizziness. Like they had this whole like press release thingy about how this could be bad. And as
Hmm.
somebody whose life quite literally is threatened by issues like that, I was like, oh my God, thank God I've been wearing my nose
Uh-huh.
mask. But throughout the entirety of last week, I was quite literally
Oh
paralyzed
my
because I couldn't
gosh.
leave my
Oh,
room. Because as soon as I
oh,
stepped out of my house, I had to breathe in, like it was intense last week. I had to breathe in this, I don't even know, it felt like a weapon, really. Like the air was so
oh my
dense and
God.
bad. Every single breath I took felt like I was piercing myself. And so the
No.
entirety of last week, essentially, I was just indoors. I couldn't step out for food. I couldn't go to classes. I just went back to school today and I had to explain to my lecturers who also had the same issue. They were unwell. And, so just to think about the climate crises and the realities of the climate crisis is something that we had to deal with just a week ago here in my country.
Yeah.
And so many people felt that even those who don't know what climate change is was insane. But I think also that sort of helps now with my work as an activist in Nigeria with talking about the issue and saying, hey, there's an example. You remember that week when we had this reason why we couldn't breathe, why we all
Hmm.
had to wear nose masks? Yes, that's really climate change, and this is why we need to do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Unfortunately, making an example out of your life. That's
unfortunately,
yeah. I hope that everything is going better now, and I'm so glad that I got you on here to talk with you. I would love, before we get deeper into what you're working on now and you give me an update, tell me about, I did a very brief introduction as to who you are and the work that you're doing. Tell me more about your background, who you are, kind of like you did on the podcast, but give me more of like a formal introduction for those people who may not know you. Tell me a little bit
yeah.
more about you.
Yeah. Oh my God, I hate formal, but okay, I'm
Okay,
gonna try.
informal, informal.
It feels like so much like Joshua introduce yourself now, and it's a lot of pressure. But hi, I'm Joshua Gabriel, as you said, Lily. I am 23 years old. I am a Nigerian climate storyteller and environmental activist. Essentially, what that means is I tend to use stories to inspire action for climate change or against climate change, right? I also happen to be the founder of a nonprofit organization and a couple projects, LearnBlue, which essentially amplifies my work, helps inspire young people like myself, Gen Zers who are from the age of say 13 to 25 or 26, teaching us what we can do in our everyday lives to take action. I think my work is built on this innate understanding that whilst, of course, individuals cannot entirely change the world, there is power in collective action. And whilst we need to lobby for and we need to call our government out and we need to hold, fossil fuel companies accountable, we can also begin doing something as young people or as individuals really across the world, from little things that we do in our daily lives to, just how our relationship or our connectedness with nature. Yeah, I mean, formally, I my work is also my work has been spotlighted over the years by some major organizations and news sites, including, of course, Sinberg, which is just before we spoke in 2022, as one of their last classes of 2021 by Noah Debates. It's one of its Sovereign honorees, and I've had the opportunity to really just tell my story across the world and sort of hopefully ensure that that story and that personal angle to the climate crisis is what is the tipping point for a lot of people to take action for, or against climate change. If that all makes sense. Try to just.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm trying to think because I feel like this label now, or kind of the formal label, the
Mhm.
climate storyteller, I think that is a new one since I last talked with
Yeah.
you. Can you tell me a little bit about kind of how you stepped into that role and how you took on that title and kind of what that means to you? Because I get so excited when I hear the word storyteller because
Yeah.
that's my bread and butter. I love it. So tell me about what that means for you and how you've stepped into that role a little bit.
Yeah, of course. I mean, also, just before I get into that, I have been doing my own bit of stalking in you, and obviously, you are like the bougie version of me. Like I'm a storyteller, you're like a
Oh,
journalist, and you're on air.
hey, hey, hey!
But
It's that formal title, right? That doesn't mean anything.
right. But no, I mean, for me, I sort of adopted this sort of fully last year. I think why is, we hear the word climate activist a lot, right? We hear like climate justice activists or climate activists or climate change activists or however you want to call it. And I think for me, over the last, I've been doing this for about half a decade now, which is insane. So I was 18, 19 years old. I'm
Yeah.
23 now. And I think for me, I was just reflecting last year on I was building. I'm somebody who's very strict on branding and curating my online profile and what you see, and I think I wanted to be able to communicate the right message to people as easily as possible with my name or my title. So if you're introducing me as Joshua Gabriel, I do want to go for climate activism because I am an environmental activist, yes, but I don't quite activate in a normal sense of the word. And what that means is, as an activist, there's you have unpopular opinions. You are protesting. You're marching. You're lobbying. Activism is so multifaceted, and I feel like for me, whilst I do some work that can be categorized as activism, I had to focus my introductory title on what I do more on a daily basis. Something that if you woke me up from sleep and say, "Hi, Joshua, come talk about climate change," I am gonna talk about it, right?
Mhm, mhm.
I'm gonna tell a story every time. I'm doing webinars and I'm starting my conversations with, "I'm so sorry, guys. I'm gonna tell a story." And so whenever I, talk about my journey, I always segue into a story. And I think it's just this, probably also family influence as well. Probably kind of house that I grew up in. But I think just growing up as a child, and staying around with my grandma, or grand aunts, there was a lot of stories in as giving us like lessons, right? They talk about attitudes. They're like, if the tortoise and the hare, and for me, I remember those lessons more because there were stories attached to them, and I think I wanted people to have the same experience with my work, right, as an activist. And so when I tell climate stories, it's easier for me to meet that same person in a year or 2 years and talk about, what I talked to them about when we first met, and they would remember it, as opposed to just, approaching it from a perspective of, say, science and facts, right? So I think that's sort of what pushed me into this, just understanding that, one, my personal attachment to stories has always been a catalyst for remembering things easier, and it helps me feel more connected to courses or to topics or to people. But also, I just want people to really easily understand the work that I do at a glance, because honestly, if you go through my Instagram, if I use the word activist as a first connotation, it's like, you don't really see me activating in the normal sense of the word, but it's very easy for you to see me giving a speech or telling a story. And so I think that's why I moved into this space. Hi, baby.
I think that makes so much sense. And I think that more people should adopt that title. I'm like a huge proponent of it, because I think your story is so amazing, and it's what makes you so empowering, and just so, I think when I first heard your story, I was like, you were one of the first people I remember talking to who I was like, this person has been personally, your health was impacted, your entire life was impacted by this issue that you were so passionate about, and it really comes through. And I think, it would be a shame if you didn't share that story. So I think it totally fits. I love it, but I definitely wanted to point that out, because that's new, and I think it's exciting. Not new as in you've been doing it for a long time, but the title, I love it. I'll be sure to put that in the episode notes and everything. Storyteller. But tell me about what you've been doing with LearnBLUE since we talked. I know that it's grown like crazy, and I know that you're probably working on some new awesome projects and things. Tell me about what your work has looked like. Of course, 2022, like you said, almost 2 years ago. Lots has been going on. Tell me about the work that you're doing now. It can be with LearnBLUE, it can be with other things. Give me the whole overview.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if this one is so formal, you'd be like, give me the tea, but no pressure. Right. Wow. Okay, so LearnBLUE, I'm not sure it's a problem necessarily in the sense that I am always, I'm a student, and so I've got so much going on, and I think it's really hard for me I have a very terrible social media game. That's how I'm just going to put it. Like, you would think that I am good at social media stuff, and I am. I mean, I worked as a social media consultant in the start of my career, and my organization quite literally grew on social media. But lately, I feel like the more I've gotten older, the less my social media activism, if that makes sense. And so I don't often share what we're doing. I literally have to, but not kind of almost quite literally put a gun on my head so I could like share our last post on LearnBLUE, which was about like the Unibank Cleanup Getaway partner for. But basically what I'm trying to say is we've been doing a lot of stuff. But I think some of the most notable ones, obviously, have just been me embodying this larger than life maybe role that I have within LEARNBLUE, right? Which is sort of as founder and executive director. And I think it's very easy to dismiss because it's like, it's a founder, executive director, but that's a lot. At LEARNBLUE's peak, and what I mean by peak is in terms of when I sort of was a full-time LEARNBLUE founder, before I sort of had to step back and focus on school, I had a team of, say, 15-ish people from across like 5 continents and several different time zones. You had people in India, in China, in, I think, Italy at the time.
Wow.
Everywhere, Singapore. And so I had to manage those people. And so it made it quite hard to, when I eventually had to step back, it made it quite hard to keep up with things. But over the last 2 years, I think the most notable things that I've done as embodying this role that I have as founder of LEARNBLUE is just do more speaking. Like, so much more speaking. I've done a lot more webinars that I care to I'm able to remember and even share on my social media because I'm always talking to people. And I know it seems so trivial because you're thinking, it's just speaking, like where is the impact there? But I think again, as a storyteller, I'm sure you deal with this as well. You want every possible avenue to talk to people because we understand more than most people that human empathy and human connection is so paramount in this movement that is climate justice and environmental justice. Being able to hear people talk, being able to hear their perspective, and then being able to tailor your stories and your solutions, whatever, to those people is so important. So I've been doing a lot of speaking. But last year we launched, in collaboration with one of my amazing friends, Nigerian climate activist as well, Oluwaseyi and my other friend, youth empowerment leader Joshua Gabriel Oluwaseyi. We launched a project called Our African Climate Story, which is like my new I want to say my new shiny toy, but it's not a toy. But it's literally like the new baby. Like I'm quite literally in the process now of sort of stepping down from LEARNBLUE as active executive director and founder, and to get somebody to go about that role and just sort of focus full time on this particular project, which is Our African Climate Story. And the premise of that is all three of us as Nigerian climate leaders have this intricate understanding of the fact that the African climate story is very one-sided when you look at it from an outside perspective. And what I mean by this is, if you search for climate change in Africa, from the Wikipedia pages to news articles, aside the few articles you get of activists who are featured, what you mostly see are stories of, how do you say, sadness and like droughts and famine and these photos of like kids who are trying to get a cup of water and, people building wells and that is the African climate story, of course. But hi, Tariq. But I think for us, we just understood that there is a much wider lens to view things from. There is a story of resilience. There is a story of hope. There's a story of, change and impact, and people creating solutions. I've got people in Kenya. Ellie just joined us. People in Kenya who are doing amazing work with hydroponics farming. We've got people who are mobilizing entire communities. We've got people who are turning recycled electric waste into power source. Right? So the amazing work that is happening across Africa, and really, our African Climate Story is a project that aims to help the people who are doing those work tell their stories better, right? So amplify their voices, because they already have voices, right? We're just trying to amplify that voice. So that's sort of our biggest project. And last year we launched it quite spectacularly with the support of We're Family Foundation in Nairobi, Kenya, during the African Climate Week. We had activists from, I think, 13, 14 African countries, come together, and we had a workshop, and we taught them about sort of media training and the basics of storytelling and what makes for a good story, how to connect with people emotionally, right? And how to go beyond just the facts, because people often want to talk about, Africa produces 4% or less than 4% of global emissions, which is true. But, the average person may not get how minuscule that is in the grand scheme of things. And so how can you make it relatable? How can you bring it down so people can understand? And so that's what this project is about, and you can tell how excited I am about it because I'm just like rambling on. But yeah,
No, I
that's what we're
love
up to at the moment. Yeah, I mean, and for 2024, we're hoping to sort of make that even bigger and open that up to more African sort of youth and gather, sort of create a collection of stories that serves as a go-to resource for politicians, for leaders, for fellow activists as well, to just sort of see that the African climate story is not one of just trials and tribulations, if you will. It's one of so many lenses, one of hope, one of youth resilience, one of solutions and ingenuity. That was a lot. I'm so sorry.
No, this is so exciting. And I saw that I was hoping that you were going to talk about that. So this is more than I hoped for sure. But I'll definitely have to do a collab with some of I was checking out that account already, and I was just like, because I featured a couple of, or at least I've kind of been in contact with a couple of the people who you've already highlighted, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. But yeah, so you gotta send me names. You gotta, tell me who I should spotlight, because I'm always on the hunt, So that's awesome. That's just amazing. I think that's a great way to really amplify those stories, and like you said, I think kind of change the narrative a little bit from look at all of these amazing projects, and especially the projects that young people are doing that are just so innovative. Like you said, I mean, just a little bit of everything. I mean, your work, all of the stories, that the potential is just amazing. So I love it. But tell me more about what you're looking forward to in the future, maybe some projects that are coming up, of course, developing this, and that's going to be awesome. Do you have any events that you're looking forward to? Any big stories or people that you're featuring that you can tell me about? Give me kind of a sneak peek as much as you can into what the next couple of days, weeks, months I don't want to say years
You,
because that's too scary, but
yeah, I
that's too
couldn't even
scary.
know about tomorrow. Yeah, that's a great question. Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, huh, I'm somebody who I have goals, of course, but I don't have, they're sort of not set in stone. And that's for reason, because I've received so many rejections and stuff, and I've had my goals, my trajectory change so much over the years that I tend to not look too far into the future now. And even when I do, I make sure it's as broad as possible. But I would say, in terms of projects that are coming up, as I'm wrapping up university in about 2 months, or 7 weeks to be more precise, I I'm just hoping to do more work with our African climate story, of course. But I think also, I this may come as a surprise, but I run an agency, or I am building an
Oh
agency.
my
But the
gosh.
agency has nothing to do. Most people know me as a climate activist, which is probably my fault because I built a fairly strict brand around like being a climate activist, which is awesome. But I do a lot of amazing stuff. I work in tech, or I used to work in tech. I was a Facebook Developer Circle community co-lead years ago, and so I'm trying to tap back into that roots, or those roots. But yeah, Ellie, I am also just sort of trying to focus more on my agency. So my agency essentially manages content creators, up and coming content creators from Africa and hopefully the world as well. And so I've been reaching out to a number of amazing creators who just have great content. And I'm like, oh my God, we should help you,
Mhm.
monetize the content and grow. But also from a social entrepreneur perspective as well, I think for us, we're just looking into sort of define my organization's position as a non-profit organization in the country. And I think what that means quite tangibly is getting accreditations, or I don't know if accreditation is the right word, but constitutive status, right, with the United Nations,
Uh-huh.
ECOSOC, UNFCCC, UNEP. They have quite rigorous sort of guidelines on how you can get these things. But I think over the last couple of years, one of my biggest gripe with being an activist from the global south has always been inaccessibility to spaces where my voice is most needed. And it's really, really sad, right?
Mhm.
Last year at COP, I was supposed to be at COP, or I really wish I could have been at COP, but some of the opportunities that I had quite literally hoped for were like, yeah, nope. I didn't get it. I couldn't get accreditation. I couldn't get funding on time. And then, of course, I eventually had exams. So I guess, in a way, that's not my excuse. But reality was I didn't get funding. And so I think for us at LEARNBLUE, what I'm trying to do over the next couple months, weeks, years even, is to solidify our standing as a nonprofit organization, a legitimate nonprofit organization. Because we in the Global South, we go through a lot more scrutiny when it comes to getting grants and stuff than perhaps our Global North counterparts. But yeah, so over the next couple of months, I think we will be in a more immediate time recruiting a new volunteer team. Like I mentioned at the start of this conversation, I will be stepping down. This feels like all those. This is like Beyonce announcing a new
Yeah.
album. Like I'm announcing this for the first time on Checking In with Changemakers. Like if you don't hear, like you're getting first scoop. But no,
Getting the
I
tea.
but yeah, I will be stepping down sort of as founder. Well, not founder, I really can't step down as that, but as executive director of my organization, LEARNBLUE. And so over the next couple of months, I will be personally interviewing a lot of young people to take over that role and lead the company or the organization into our next sort of futures. So yeah, that's what we're looking to do. It's just, I think for us, 2024 is just a year of strategizing, right? So Q1, Q2, Q3 is largely going to be around strategy development, expansion in terms of getting new team members, because my previous team have like a 10-year thing of 2 years, and then we sort of refresh. And then Q4, perhaps we can then begin looking into maybe applying for certain statuses or grants and stuff. But yeah, that's sort of the plan for our near future.
That's exciting. That's exciting. I feel like I am getting some inside, not that it's a secret, but exciting. I'm so excited to
Oh, I
see.
am stepping down. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I know everyone's blowing up the comments. You got some fans. So I asked you this question almost 2 years ago, which is scary on the podcast, but the
Mm.
signature question, lots of young people, especially high school students, university students, want to create change, want to make a difference, but they may not know how to get started with that work. What advice do you have for those people who may be watching us, who may be listening later on the podcast?
Mm. Oh wow! I mean, I'm pretty sure whatever I'm gonna say. I don't remember what I said 2 years ago. I'm quite sure it's gonna be around the same thing
Okay.
because I feel like I've held my ground on certain points of view since doing it. It's like you're gonna do this, but right. I mean, again, it still goes back to what I always say, which is the fact that I believe in the power of behavioral change, right? And I think that's something that may be overlooked, in terms of how we approach climate action. Behavioral change is the understand. This is my definition. This is not Wikipedia or something, but it's sort of this innate understanding that everything you do in your everyday life, from how you wake up or when you wake up, to when you brush your teeth, to when you go to work, to how you get to work, to what kind of food you eat, and so on, affects the environment, right? That this understanding that it's all a cycle, the cycle of life, or more, directly, the cycle of climate change, and climate action. And so, for young people around the world who are listening to this sounds. I'm sorry. I felt I made that. That's why I like some sort of speech, like I had a dream. It's like to all young people who are listening, this is your president. I'm so sorry. I'm so playful. But to young people who are listening to this, what you can do to take climate action, again, like I probably said 2 years ago, is understanding, one, that things that you're doing in your everyday life, minuscule things, have an impact on the environment. Understanding that there, at any given time, there are at least a million people who are doing whatever you're doing. So if you're sleeping, there's a million people who are sleeping. If you're using hot water to bake, there are like a million people who are doing that as well. If you're, I don't know, throwing your debt, your waste instead of in the right, I don't know, just by the roadside, there's like a million plus people who are doing the exact same thing. So understanding that collective action, in turn has an impact on the environment, which means whatever you do is not being done by you alone, helps a lot. But I think also something that I've tried to advocate for more and more lately is the establishment of or the recognition of the power in volunteering, right? People tend to, I don't know, I feel like for our generation, that's Gen Zers. I don't know about Gen Alpha. I heard they're like all vision stuff. But for us, volunteering, we're like the biggest volunteer generation. And volunteering is like cool. Like it's something everybody wants to do. It's like, why not? And so, for Gen Alphas and those young people who are in secondary school now who are listening to this, understanding that just joining a local organization, a local club, is a good step into helping fight for the environment. I'm volunteering in an organization who does work around, say, interviewing changemakers, or who does work around helping changemakers learn how to tell their stories. Is a great way to fight for the environment. And obviously, this is not just for climate change. This goes for all numbers of the global goals. This is gender inequality. This is education. This is, good health and well-being. This is zero hunger and poverty. Literally, the simplest of actions that you take helps someone somewhere. It's a ripple effect, right? It's sort of this paying it forward attitude. And I think lastly, um, what I would advise you to do is, if you feel like you don't want to volunteer, or you've not quite found an avenue to express your concern or your passion, then create your own
Mhm.
avenue. And what that could mean is creating a social media account to begin talking about an issue, right? I know that there's people from my team Vogue class of 2021 who are quite literally like TikTokers who just talk about Black history or talk
Yeah.
about racism or talk
Mhm.
about gender equality, right? And those are actions you can take. We have so many tools at our fingertips right now. So much disposable tools. We have smartphones, we have good internet, we have good cameras, we have ring lights, so understanding that you have access to these invaluable resources that people before you perhaps did not have, and being able to leverage them as your creative outlets to make change is so important. So I'm hoping somewhere in my maybe 4 minutes of talking that there's some one of those points applies to you, you guys. But yeah, hopefully that sort of resonates with my previous philosophy in
Oh my
2022.
gosh, I'll have to go
10
back and
yeah.
listen. What if it's like exactly the same? What if you brought up behavioral change? That would be amazing.
I would
We'll
be so
see. We'll
shocked.
see. I have one more question for you. After listening to all of this, if people want to follow along with you, if they want to support your work, what is the best way for people to do that?
Well, as a boomer Gen Z, and I'm a boomer. My friends like I don't have Snapchat. I have Snapchat, but I feel like it's just for photos. I don't do social media as much as one would expect that I should. But I am, fairly active on Instagram,
Yeah,
where we are
yeah.
now. Yeah, I try. I really
I
try.
think
And
it's
I also I would pride
good.
myself in saying that my DMs on Instagram are almost always clear. And so if you text me on Instagram that you need help with X or Y or Z, I am very likely to respond once I do log into Instagram. I think also on a more formal note, you could find me on LinkedIn as well. I am making a conscious. I tried making a conscious effort, and I am still trying, I guess, to be more active on platforms like LinkedIn because they provide an immeasurable amount of exposure to people who make decisions, right? And so you could technically find me on LinkedIn if you wanted and connected over there. I'm also still on Facebook. Yes, I am that guy. So if you're on Facebook like me and you're a young person, awesome. Please send me a DM on Facebook. I would likely respond as well when I do have a chance to get in there. But I think the most direct way to reach me is to send me an email. And at the moment, my Instagram profile has my email address. I think you have the email button, and so you can
Perfect.
directly email me on my official email on LEARNBLUE, and I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible.
Perfect, perfect. And I'll also link everything. This is going to be posted on the Be the Change podcast feed as well. So I'm going to link everything in the description. I'm actually sure that you'll have people reaching out to you. It seems like you already have fans that are all, look, I can confirm he
I
is that
mean, this
guy.
guy was just like gassing me up because I don't know what.
Everyone's
What
just for the people that are listening to this and they can't see it, I'm just telling you, I'm telling everyone who's listening, he has fans. All these people, comments, comments. I love it. This was so much fun. I'm gonna do my official little ending, but thank you so much. This was so fun. I'm so glad that we got to catch up, and thank you to everyone who's watching. Thank you to everyone who's listening. If you want to talk about anything I mentioned, please reach out to me by email at lily@bethechangepodcast.org or on Instagram at bethechangepodcast or on this account now too. And like I said, I'm going to link everything to contact Joshua in the description of the episode, and tune in for a new episode of Be the Change podcast tomorrow. Until then, be the change you
awesome.
wish to see in the world. Thank you
That's
so
so
much,
cool.
Joshua.
Thank you
This
so
was so
much,
fun.
Lee. I was also going to mention you got the journalist accent like midway through your
The
you know,
what?
read. When you were reading out like where they could contact you on, you had like this, the journalist accent
Yes.
they have in the US, yeah? It's
Well, because
very
I've got that. I mean, at this point, I've probably said that line probably what, like 200 times. It's ridiculous. If I
yeah,
can't say that by memory, and if I don't have like a tone, I would be surprised.
it's very much like give us a call on. I can't
Exactly.
even do the voice. It's so
It's like a
it has a cadence. I can't.
telemarketer.
But thank you
Just
so much,
on
really.
loop.
Thank you. Really
Thank
for checking in
you.
on me. Hopefully, in like 2 years again, we're gonna come back and do
Yes.
one more catch up, and by that
Yes.
time, we probably have our consultative status with the UN, and that would be so cool if that
Ooh,
happens.
yes, yes.
Um,
It
Shout
might be
out
sooner
to
than
my
that.
friends. Yeah, shout out to my
Yeah.
friends, David. I can't even see everyone, but I know some
Yeah.
people showed up.
Everybody
And
is
you guys, Tariq, oh my goodness, thank you so much for
so many
coming.
friends.
Uh, Catch you guys in the next one, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah,
Bye,
yeah.
ladies.
Bye, Joshua. Have a good one.
You too.